Jose Aldo is so good. I mean, that guy is one of the best to have ever done it. He went 11 years undefeated, won championships, and just had it all come to a screeching halt in that fight with Conor. And, you know, he was a little bit annoying after that, too. He had asked for rematches publicly, but then denied them privately. And there was just kind of some hard waves there for Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo as a champion was very annoying. That's true. But Jose Aldo as a challenger has been very refreshing. I mean, he's done some really hard work in some really hard weight classes. And when you watch him fight, it's incredible. Now, hold that thought. I'll tie that in a minute, okay? Move on to the main event where you have Poirier and Eddie. Incredible match, back-and-forth battle, complete with some controversy, so a little bit for everybody there. But their skills were so on display, you could just tell these are two killers. These are two trained killers. Absolutely durable in every way, can deal with adversity, can wrestle, can strike, can punch, can kick, can just do the whole thing. Big heart, big everything. Check off every box. These are wonderful fighters. Tie that in at the end of the night with something we've talked about over here on more than one occasion. But this past weekend of Jose, reminding us he's one of the greatest to have ever done it. Of Eddie, former world champion. Of Poirier, who's a top contender. An absolute top contender that may not even get his shot because that division's so log-jammed, okay? It does bring you back to the one simple question of how good is Conor McGregor? It just keeps on circling back to that. You know, you could even throw Chad Mendes in the mix, who was up a couple of weeks ago against Miles Jury and looked great. But when you watch all of those matches, ultimately you're forced to stand back and say, just how good is Conor McGregor? He didn't have a problem with any of those guys, and it even is starting to correct history. And many people have rewritten Conor McGregor's story. Many people have told you that he wasn't a megastar or that he gets special treatment because he is such a big star. They're rewriting the fact that in his third fight, he was the main event and sold out an arena. He was the main event and sold out an arena, and I watched the fight, and I cannot tell you who the opponent was. And that is not a slide to his opponent, but Dana White had even said very carefully, yeah, we're going to bring this guy along slow. So that narrative seemed to catch on, and many people thought that he was handed a bit of a silver spoon. And even Dana himself said, yeah, we're trying to feed him with a silver spoon. That's true. But in hindsight, we all have to be able to look back and say, well, one of those silver spoons, his second fight ever, was Max Holloway. So it turned out that wasn't such an easy night, was it? And one of those silver spoons was also Dustin Poirier, who's one of the baddest dudes in the entire roster right now. So it turned out that silver spoon was a little misjudged, wasn't it? So why that story of Conor's career was told that he was brought up nice and slow until, I think it was fight number 6 when he had Chad Mendes. Might have been 7. I think it was 6. All of a sudden we got to relook at that and go, well, maybe that was the plan, but that's not what ended up happening. What ended up happening was he was taking on these killers, and now as these killers move on, even in Conor's absence, you start to see just how good he was and is. And I still don't know that I have the answer to that question. One of the things with his dominance and with anybody's dominance is it leaves room for you to chalk it up to, oh, he got lucky. Right, when he came out and put Jose Aldo down in seconds with one punch, it did leave room for us, whether we wanted to admit it out loud or not, to just go, I don't think he could do that again. I know that was my opinion. I really like to see that fight again. I don't think he could do that again. This is how easy he was beating guys. And as we do look ahead to October 6th, as we do look ahead to Conor versus Khabib, on first glance, it appears that Khabib is going to throw him down and beat the hell out of him because we've seen Conor taken down before, and we know that Khabib is good at taking people down. We know that Conor can keep a pace on guys that most guys can't deal with. And we know that Khabib has the highest pace in the division. So when we look at that, we think that this is going to be a bit of a steamroll for Khabib. But then when you're confronted with, well, just how good is Conor? And I've been very late to the Conor party in terms of, not as an entertainer and not even as a successful fighter. I've been late on the skill set. When I watch his skill set from television, I think it's weird. His chin's up and his hands are down. Guys, that's really bad. If you are an aspiring fighter, do not copy him. But there are certain guys that come along over time that do break that rule and go a long way with it. Roy Jones Jr. is one of them. Anderson Silva in our sport to an extent did that. But everybody's career ends the same that does that. That is a little bit earlier than it needed to, and that is knocked out cold. Everybody's time comes that does that, but that doesn't mean they can't create something special in between. So when you watch Conor and you watch Khabib and you think you've got this whole thing figured out, you then watch Jose Aldo, Eddie Alvarez, I'm going to throw Chad Mendez in there, Dustin Poirier. You stand back in amazement of how good and skilled they are, and then you're confronted with the reality that Conor went through them all. And then you're left wondering, just how good is that son of a bitch? We know he's good. We would never question that. He's got 3 world titles. I'm counting the interim. But he's got 3 world titles that say he's pretty damn good. So we don't question that. But we are left to speculate just how good. Can my eyes be deceiving me for what this guy's doing on TV? And I think that this match with Khabib is the perfect one to let us know one way or the other. One way or the other. And if I'm Khabib, and I was just talking to you guys about the one thing that worries me with Conor is that he keeps his chin up and his hands down. If I had any problem with Khabib's style, it's that. It's that his chin is showing the entire time and his hands aren't high enough. And as straight as Conor hits, it is kind of hard to believe that he's not going to connect with him. I haven't seen Khabib hurt, that's true, but I had never seen Eddie Alvarez hurt either. I hadn't ever seen Jose Aldo hurt. So I just think it's an interesting match. And I do know that I originally did find myself sitting on the fence of, hey, if you want Conor's reign to continue, keep him away from Khabib. I think that that's still where I am. But I think that before I take out my money or influence you guys to take out your money and walk up to that window at a Las Vegas sports book and bet, you had better also admit we don't quite know how good Conor is. We just know he's really good. He hasn't really been tested, and the one time that he was pushed and tested, it was against Nate Diaz, which was a surprise. It just that really turned into a bad matchup for Conor. Conor's used to hitting and hurting people. Nate Diaz isn't really into getting hurt. He's just one of those durable guys that can take those shots. And pretty soon Conor's energy level went down, and there's Nate still standing there punching. I mean, it was just kind of a unique style. I know a lot of guys wanted to call Conor out after that because they thought they could do well with Nate. And if Nate ran over Conor, then they could run over Conor. But it really wasn't the same thing. It wasn't, if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. It's not one of those situations. It was a really interesting matchup, but I still think you have to look at that if you're Khabib. Go, okay, why did Nate have such good luck there? First off, Nate puts his chin down and his hands up. So Khabib should probably start with that. It's one of the reasons Nate was able to take that. It wasn't fully what Conor said and influenced the fans to believe that it was the size difference. That size did have something to do with it, but it wasn't fully that. Nate was also able to take those shots a little bit better because he took them in the right spots. And then it comes to the conditioning. And we know that from Conor's own mouth. And he said that with Floyd as well. He said, well, I do get a little tired out there when I get excited. And I think I'm going to finish a guy. I tend to put my foot down. And if the guy doesn't go away, I'm kind of stuck. I don't know if I agree with Conor's assessment that he ever has conditioning issues. And I know that has circled through the MMA community at times. I've seen more of the opposite than I have of that. I saw him pushing the pace particularly in Diaz part 2. I saw him pushing the pace against Chad Mendes. So I don't know if I fully agree with him, but to extend that out over 25 minutes, it is a strategy and something he needs to do, and that's going to go both ways. Conor does have ice running through his veins, not for nothing else. He can deal with pressure. I haven't seen Khabib fold under pressure, but I would also offer to you he's never had an experience like this. These are talking points. These are speculative. I'm offering you intangibles. But my overarching message is I'm really looking forward to that match. That match offers something that I think I know. But I've been around this sport long enough to know I never know. I don't actually know. I got to see it.